So we didn't quite finish up the create post functionality because when we try to create a post, we are not currently able to associate tags with it. So we're going to want to first just take a peek at what that looks like now. So I'll log in as Jane Doe and I'll create a new post. And we see we have a title and we have a body, but indeed we have no way to associate tags, and we know that we have at least these 5 nice tags over here that we might want to associate with it. So let's get that up and running now. I'm going to open my code editor, which is Sublime, and I'm in my create.html file. I can also open my create.js file. First, what we're going to want to do is kind of figure out what this tag association area should look like. And I'm just going to opt with using checkboxes. You can certainly do this in many, many ways, but checkboxes will be probably a good way to illustrate this point now. So let's go ahead and create checkboxes here. So I'll create a div, and that class will be a form check. And then within that div, I will create an input, and this will be my checkbox input. And the class is form check input. We type that as obviously checkbox, and we'll leave it there for now. And then it's also going to need a label, so let's add a label, and the class will be form check label. And then finally, within this label, we can just say tag name, and this will be dynamically populated at some point. But let's just see how that looks on our web page. Yeah, it looks pretty good. Maybe I'll add some sort of divider between the tags and the create post. So I'll just do like a horizontal rule here. That'll probably be fine. Check that out. Yeah, and that looks good. Okay, great. So what we're going to want to do though is have one of these checkboxes for each tag that's listed in our tag section over here. So what we can do is just use that same tag method on the post service to fetch all of the tags that we have. Let's hop on over to our create view model, and we've already got the post service. So what we can do is use maybe the attached lifecycle hook, and we can use our post service. And the method on our post service is all tags, and it's a promise, so we're going to do something with that data. And we're also going to want to catch any errors. And for now, I'm just going to console log the errors if we run into them. But we know that we should probably handle those in a kind of more user-facing fashion. Great. So what I'm going to do is create a property of the view model called all tags, and that'll be equal to the return tags. And let me just go into common, services, and post service, and just scroll down to the all tags method and show you that if this is successful, what is resolved is an object with a tags property, and that just gives us basically all of our tags. So that is what I'm accessing now. So we will eventually have a property called all tags that equals to all tags that we have in our system. I can go back over to the view and we can do some binding. So this form check div, what we can do is use a handy repeater and say repeat for. And we can just repeat for each tag of all tags. What we'll want to do is make sure we are displaying the tag within this label. But we're also going to want to bind what that tag is to the value of this checkbox. So we can say value.bind equals tag. I'll give that a save, and let's go back to our browser. And yeah, we can see that now we have all of these tags listed and we can check them individually. But we haven't said how that kind of gets associated to the rest of the posts that exists. And we can actually do that in a pretty easy way. So what we can say is that checked will be binded to posts.tags. And so what's going to happen is that we have this title string, we have this body string. Well, now we're going to have this tags array, and for each one of these input items that are checked, it's going to either be in the array if it is checked, and if it's not checked, it'll be not in the array. So let's take a quick peek at our browser, and this will actually end up not working maybe as we expected. So let's click on one of these checkboxes. Well, that's kind of weird. Why is it checking all of the other ones? And the truth is that Aurelia has no way of knowing what post.tags is. We haven't told it that it's an array. So what we should really be doing is, if I go to my create view model, what we should do potentially in the attached lifecycle hook is actually tell the view model what the post property is supposed to be. So we can say this.post, and let's just default it to just basically an empty object, but that kind of has the skeleton of what a post is. So we might say the title is an empty string, the body is an empty string, and we might say tags is an empty array, and this will actually tell the view model that this tags property of the post is indeed expected to be an array. So this is great. It might be more proper to, instead of creating it this way, perhaps we would have a post class in our application somewhere and use a more object-oriented approach. But this, is fine for now. So we're going to go with this. And now if I go back to the browser, I can see that, all right, now when I check these, it's doing more of what we might expect, which is just showing one checked. But what's cool now is that these are indeed populating to the tags property of our post object that we are creating here. And we can demonstrate that because I can go ahead and log in as Jane Doe, and I can create a new post, and you just say this is my new post, and this is the body. Great. And so I can select maybe Kafka and learning and Aurelia, and I'll just hit create post, and here we go. So this is my new post, and Kafka is associated, learning is associated, Aurelia is associated. I can click on one of these tags, and it's the first one that shows because it's the most recent one I created. We can see that the date's correct, the user is correct. So yeah, this is working really well. This is exactly what we want to happen. But we might be thinking also that when I create a new post, well, maybe I also want to create an entirely new tag. So how might we do that? What I'm going to propose is that we simply add an input, a text input that a user can add a new tag to. And when they click a button or click a link, it automatically adds that item to our list here. And maybe it already pre-selects that item as checked for the post. So let's do that now. I am going to go back and I'm going to go into my create view. And right below the logic that we just created, let's create another form group. So I'll just say div class equals form group. And let's create an input. So we'll do input type equals text. This will just be a basic text input. And we can give it a value. We can bind the value of this to new tag. So ultimately on our view model, we're going to have a new tag property. And then finally, let's just create a link that'll submit this. So we'll create a maybe add tag button here, or it'll just be a link, and then you click delegate. We'll delegate to an action on the view model, and that can be the add tag action. So that's all we need to do on the view here. So we just actually have to implement this add tag method now. Let's hop over to the view model and let's create it here. So add tag. Well, what are we going to want to do? So if I go back to my web page, there's a couple things we're going to want to do. One is we are going to want to add it to the all tags list so that it actually populates within this repeater And then we're also going to want to check it. And the way we can check it is simply by pushing it to the array of selected tags for our post object. I'll show you exactly how that goes. It's really actually quite simple. So the first thing we'll want to do is add it to all tags. So I can say this dot all tags dot push, and we bound the value to this dot new tag. So that'll add it to the all tags array, and I can show you that in the browser now. So maybe we'll call the next tag personal, add tag. Well, there we go. It appeared right away because it is now within the array that's being repeated to display these checkboxes. But as I mentioned, I want it pre-selected because intuitively, if I'm adding a tag right now, well, the only reason I would do that is because I want to add it to my current post. So we can also say this.post.tags push this.new tag. So binding the checked property to the post tags array. So by adding an item to that tags array, well, yeah, it should be checked. So let's see if that actually works. Again, let's add the personal tag, add tag, and there we go. It's checked. So the final step we might want to do is actually clear out this text box, which would make sense. We don't need to then keep adding the personal tag to the array. So we can simply do that. Again, two-way binding. We can say new tag equals an empty string, and we should be good to go. So let's try that one more time. Add personal. There we go. So now we are adding the personal tag, and that looks exactly how we might want. We could add another one. We could add one that says maybe front end. Add that tag. Yeah, and we can just keep adding them and it'll work. So that's really cool. So now I want to show that if I log in here as Jane Doe and I create a new post, now if I add the personal tag and maybe I select another one like JavaScript and I hit create post, well, here we go. So this is my new post, and we've added our personal tag, and we've got our JavaScript tag. I can click on personal. We are viewing posts by tag personal, and indeed it shows up here. That's great. So we're good to go, right? Well, actually, no, we're not, because if you notice on the sidebar here, we've got our tags, but it doesn't include the personal tag, and we've got our archives, and it doesn't include the fact that we've got something in February 2018. So what's going on here is the same thing that was happening with our welcome text here. The sidebar has no idea that we added this post. Why would it? There really would be no reason. So we have to tell the sidebar that we have added a new post and that the tags and the archives should potentially be updated. The way I'm going to implement this is quite similar to how we handled the user change. I'm basically going to publish to the event aggregator and then subscribe within my overall app to make sure that the tags and archive section are in sync. So let's hop on over to our code and make sure that's the case. What we'll want to do first is within the create view model, let's pull in our event aggregator. Next, we'll have to remember to use our dependency injection. So we will use it in the inject decorator section and then also in the constructor. And we will set this .ea equal to event aggregator. Great. And then so when we scroll down to our create post method, prior to sending the user to the post view, let's go ahead and publish to our event aggregator. So let's say this.ea.publish, And we can publish to something called post updated. And I'm calling it post updated rather than created because I envision that we might use this when we also are editing posts. So that's just a little bit of forward thinking there. And what we can publish to this, well, we don't actually need to, we could think about publishing the added tags and maybe publish the date of this post, but really I'd like to delegate that functionality of making sure the tags and archives are in sync. I'll just leave that to the sidebar to handle. What I can really do now is just post the current date, and if you use date as a function without newing up a date object, this will just return a string of the current date. So basically what I'm saying is that, hey, at this exact time there was a change to our posts. Let's make sure that everything is up to date as of this current time. So I'm now going to go to my app file. If I go to app.js, currently in our attached method, we have the posts service getting the tags and getting all the archives. Let's go ahead and extract this and put it in its own method. So maybe the method will be called update sidebar. And let's just dump that logic all in there. So whenever we call update sidebar, the sidebar will get updated because we are populating the tags and populating the archives. Well, we know that we still, once this particular view is attached, we still want to call update sidebar. So let's first and foremost say when this is attached, let's make sure to update the sidebar. But also we can use the event aggregator here, and much like we subscribed right here, we can say this dot ea dot subscribe, and we can subscribe to post updated, and we know what we're getting from that is the update, or the updated at, perhaps we're getting the time from that. But we don't actually need to use this this variable that's being passed the string of time. It's really just helping us know that the post was updated. So instead, all we need to do here is just call this dot update sidebar. And that is a method. So what's going to happen is anytime that a post is updated, this subscription will say, hey, a post has been updated. Let's update the sidebar. So let's just quickly go back to the application, and I'm going to log in again. We'll log in as Jane Doe. We will create a new post, and we'll say my new post. This is a new post. And this will be JavaScript, it'll be learning, and it'll also be personal. I'll add that tag, and I'll click create. And look at this. So now our tags on the sidebar, we received the message, and it said, okay, we got to update the tags. So we updated it. It includes personal. Now we have to update our archives. It now includes February. I can click on these, and yeah, they're just functional parts of the application at this point, and everything looks great. So just for completeness, the one last thing I'm going to do is much like the previous subscription was disposed of in our detached method, let's just go ahead and make sure that we dispose of this. So maybe we'll call this dot post subscription. And maybe that's too verbose, but that's what I'll use for now. And we'll scroll down and just additionally make sure we dispose of that, and we will be in good shape now. So awesome. Thanks for following along, and now we have a totally functional post creation section, and I think we can feel really good about that.